Still got some fine tuning to do on the engine. It runs and it drives. I'm not crazy about the way it shifts. It's kind of hard to start when it's hot. Not usually bad when it's cold, although that start wasn't the best I've ever seen. Got American Racing Nova wheels. Fronts are 17 by 8. The rears are 18 by 8. Exhaust is pretty quiet, which I know no one likes but me, but oh well. I threw some bucket seats in it from a 84 Buick Skyhawk T-Type. Actually, it was a Skylark T-Type. I can't remember. They were a guy I used to work with 20 years ago, and he was junking the car. They were really cool seats. They look kind of like Grand National seats, but they have the Caterpillar thing going on in the middle. They're real comfortable. They're adjustable. A lot nicer than stock seats, that's for sure. They're hot as a rock. But at a glance, it looks pretty stock. You wouldn't really see much going on unless you notice the air intake down low. When you went a little closer, you notice they had an intercooler in the grill. And down low is the transmission cooler on one side, the oil cooler on the other. Let me shut it off and we can hear a little better. So externally, for all intents and purposes, it's stock 69442. It's a real 442, not a clone, not a tribute, or whatever bullshit name they use nowadays for a phony. It's got most power options, power windows, tilt, factory gauges. It had an AM/FM radio with 8-track. I took it all out because it didn't really work well and it sounded like crap. I needed the room anyway. It had AC, which I now have aftermarket AC. Has a power antenna. Like I said, it had most options. The only thing it didn't have was cruise control and power door locks. It had everything else. It was originally a 400, 325 horse, turbo 400 with a 308 axle. Now it's a 6-liter LS with a GT45 turbo. And it's the same basic setup Sloppy Mechanics uses in all their builds. Well, the old type builds they used to do. Same wastegate. Same turbo. It's a 2004 6-liter LQ4 from a 1-ton van, except it has an LS9 cam. It's got ARP rod bolts, ARP head bolts. Has the comp cams, roller trunnion conversion for the rockers. Has comp cams, push rods. The cylinder heads were cracked, so I picked up a pair of LS3 heads off of a Corvette. Did a real deal with the, I believe the sodium filled exhaust valves. So I used an L92 truck intake for that. Has the stock 75mm throttle body from the LQ4. It's got a 204R with all CK parts inside, billet front shaft, billet shell, billet this, billet that. CK shift kit. It's got a, I think it's an art car pan. I'll try to get out of the car and take a shot of that. I had to modify the power steering reservoir to fit. It's got the small pulley on the power steering pump so it clears the steering box. That's a pretty common trick in the A-bodies. Steering box is the original, but I had it rebuilt with the, I think it's the Jeep shaft or whatever they call it inside that makes it, stiff. And they changed the ratio too, so it's only 2.5 turns lock to lock. I also used the Hydro Boost off the van for my brakes, because the original brakes kind of sucked. What I did was kind of cool. I didn't want to drill a firewall, so I had a friend of mine take a power brake booster off one of these things that was junk, and I drilled out the spot welds where it goes to the original vacuum canister, and I re-drilled that to mount the van Hydro Boost on it, so it just bolts right on, bolts and nuts. It bolts right to the firewall, so it's almost a bolt-on swap. The master cylinder is the original master, and the rest of the brake system is 12-inch front brakes off a LS1 Camaro 98 to 2002, and the rear is actually, I believe it's 11 5/8 off a Blazer, which is very similar to the Camaro brake, just a teeny bit smaller. I had to use a spacer on the back because the 18-inch version of this rim The closest I could get to the center offset was 24mm offset, so I had to do a little finagling to make it fit right and fill the wheel well like I wanted. But there's a intercooler stuck in the grill way inside here. If you look, you can just see it. I actually had a Pontiac Solstice and I bought a bunch of hypo parts for that. I ended up selling it, and luckily the Solstice intercooler was the exact width to fit my car. I had to cut off the inlet and outlet. They used to go in the front. I don't know if I can get a shot of it. There we go. They used to go in the front right there, but we cut them off at my shop and welded them over and then put them on top. So now it's a vertical inlet and exhaust. And those are just blocked off, but the width is perfect. So I had to move the mounts a little bit on one side. And on this side is the biggest B&M tranny cooler they make. I use that for the transmission. And the other side, I have the same thing but for an oil cooler. Because this van engine came with a oil cooler adapter on it, so we just modified that to put fittings on it, so it took hydraulic hoses and it plumbed out easy. Move the battery into this side. I put it sideways, tucked into the wheel well as close as I could to the fender. Give me some more room for an air inlet right here. With my intercooler tubing. Just comes off right there. And this side you can plainly see it goes right over here. And boom, right into the intercooler. It's an aluminum radiator, I believe made by Northern. I've had that for a few years. Rather than go with the LS style with the inlet outlet on both sides, not the same side rather, I had this one. I just utilized it with the Tahoe upper hose, and it's got a Ford Taurus fan I got from my friend Doug in Ohio. Thanks, Doug. And the rest of it is pretty much stock LS. The van alternator, van power steering pump with a remote reservoir, van coils. The exhaust manifold on this side is I believe this is a van exhaust manifold. Truck manifold. I modified it at the bottom a little bit to clear the frame better. This side, nothing lent itself well. I didn't like the truck manifold, so what we did was I bought some Corvette manifolds off eBay. They were brand new for I think it was an LS3 Corvette. And what we did was just cut off the parts that go to the cylinder head. I don't know if you can see it, but those are cast iron. So it's basically if you took the stock, yeah, you can just see they're cast iron. We just bolted those to the head and cut them off at the log part of the body, if you want to call it that. And then took a piece of heavy wall tubing and used that for the turbo manifold itself. You really can't see it very well, sorry. But trust me, that's what's in here. So it's just a straight piece of tubing with the stock pieces that bolt to the cylinder head welded to it, and then a flange that goes up here. You can kind of see it from here. Just elbows up, a mounting flange for the turbo, and a bracket to go to the cylinder head to stiffen it up so it doesn't rock and crack and break, and a lot of plumbing for oil, get the coolant lines by it, wastegate, piping, goes back onto the downpipe. Since this is the Chinese turbo, it's got that goofball sized outlet. They give you a flange, so we just use that flange and a piece of, I think it's 4-inch tubing off of here. And we had to snake it down to 3.5 to clear the frame. It's still a really tight fit. It's 3.5 inch down there. But I'll get under the car in a minute. And there's my Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator and gauge. And I 90'd all the air conditioning and HVAC stuff out this way. Get away from the turbo and the downpipe. It goes through the wheel well, over the top of the wheel well under the fender. And I had to open this up a little bit and put a steel plate in there with some heat covering over it so it wouldn't melt the stock plastic wheel well. Thought that was a wise idea. Again, it's not like everybody else does their cars. Maybe this is better, maybe it's worse. I don't know, but it's the way I did it. So that's pretty much it up top, I think. I guess I'll jack it up and take a little stroll under. That's where some of the real crazy stuff is.